following is an original production of Radio Sydney.
And there's a gentleman sitting on what I would say like a bench-like chair. He's got on a brownish colored jacket with the high neck again, dark hair. Looks like he might have facial hair.
Okay.
And he's got on light colored pants.
Now, how could you possibly see that? I see tree branches in a window.
Welcome to Seeing Dead People, the mystery storytelling podcast with a clairvoyant twist. Not only do we tell compelling tales of famous unsolved murders, missing persons cases, and supernatural events, we enhance our understanding to the uncanny insights of D'Arcy, a talented, professional British Columbian psychic medium. Hey, I'm Nicola, researcher, writer, and wannabe believer in the paranormal. I'm bewitched by unsolved mysteries and inexplicable experiences, and am dying to know more.
Hi, I'm D'Arcy. I am a psychic medium, and I see and talk to dead people.
Before we begin, I should let you know that I've taken a teeny bit of creative license to dramatize the chain of events in this episode. No fiddling with facts, just a few added embellishments to increase your enjoyment. I am, after all, a storyteller. So now please, relax, open your mind, and prepare for a riveting mystery and the psychic ride of your life. It may be delightful or disturbing, but we guarantee you will be entertained, informed, and plunged into dark and unsettling dimensions of which you've never even dreamed. We accomplish this using an original and fascinating twist on Seeing Dead People. As I begin to unravel the facts and lore of each episode's central question, I ask D'Arcy to share with us what emotions, relationships, and incidents she sees and hears from my words and from the photographs of the key people and places that I have sent her just minutes before we begin speaking. I encourage you to play along with us by checking out these pics on our Seeing Dead People website on RadioSidney.ca. Another amazing element of Seeing Dead People is that I don't reveal anything about the show to D'Arcy before we begin. Not the title, not the subject matter, nothing. And just like you, she's hearing my version of this unsolved enigma and seeing the related photographs for the very first time. So her intuitive comments and reactions will be spontaneous, unrehearsed, and uncensored. I know you'll be astonished at how close D'Arcy's revelations are to the actual circumstances and amazed at her intimate understanding of what events may have occurred. As a result of D'Arcy's singular experiences and unnerving explanations, we too can hear and see dead people. And now, Radio Sydney presents Seeing Dead People, Episode 37, Ghosts of the Merchants Museum.
Well, hello, D'Arcy. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you doing, Nicola?
I'm absolutely feeling really great, and we have a glorious day here in late June. We're going to go to the Big Apple itself, D'Arcy, New York City. We're going to a street in Manhattan, and our goal is a 4-story red row brick house or home. I should just ask you right up front, are you getting any tinglies before we go further?
No, but I did get all the pictures opened.
Great. Okay, well, we're going on a tour of this red brick family home, but I'm not going to reveal much to you about the building or the family early on, D'Arcy. Given that this is Seeing Dead People, however, I don't think I'm giving anything away to tell you we're going to explore what is considered to be the most haunted house in all of Manhattan. I thought it would be really fascinating to try something new and possibly a little precarious today. I plan to have us just meander through the house and discover what you see, what you hear, and maybe who you meet. It'll be risky because I have no idea what your psychic senses are going to pick up here, but since it's such a haunted house, I'm confident, given your past amazing intuitions, that we won't be disappointed. I will help you a little bit as we saunter on, adding tidbits So any thoughts on this initial little photograph, number one, on the red brick building with the really unattractive side?
Okay,
Yeah.
before I look at it, just listening to you talk and everything,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, I'm not sure there's any murder here. At this point, it feels more like a family haunting. Okay,
Okay.
so now I'm gonna go look at it, and it says 29 East 4th Street, Manhattan.
Right.
And well, it's definitely, it would have been quite stately. I hear music playing, but I would say it would be quite stately at its time. Like it must have housed quite the family because it's right there and people walking by. Too bad it's got graffiti on it now. But I would say it's, you said it, it's multi-generational, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like grandparents, parents, children, and cousins and stuff is what I would say with this one. Oh, look at that. There's people in the window.
There's people in the window.
Yes, there's a lady. Really.
Wait, window, which window?
Okay, so down by the door, which is a very pretty door.
It's lovely arch.
And I'm going to say maybe it's the parlor or front room. On when I'm looking at it, it's on my left.
Yes.
And there's a lady whose hair is pulled all back, you know, the white collar sort of thing with the bustle type of dress. So this is probably dating us 1800.
Okay.
And she's just looking out the window.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay. I don't see a lady looking out the window. I've zoomed in and I see some flimsy looking curtains on both those windows, but no lady.
Yeah, they're true. There are lace curtains.
Right. But you see a lady in which window? The first one towards the door or the one towards the other house?
Yeah, one towards the blue house.
Fantastic.
Is there a basement?
Yes, there is. When we go inside, D'Arcy, I think you'll be blown away. It is like a 19th century time capsule. One of New York City's prominent families lived here, and this house was preserved intact as to furnishings, personal items, day-to-day use. It's pretty well exactly the way it was throughout the 19th century. It's really remarkable. And you won't be surprised that it's a National Historical Landmark. Inside is a collection of over 3,000 items comprising the possessions of the one prominent New York family. Members of that family lived here for nearly 100 years. The collection contains furniture, decorative arts, clothing, photographs, books, household items, and of course, many, many, many personal items, including nearly 40 Victorian dresses. It's now known as the Merchant's House Museum, and you'll understand why in a few minutes. So it's the only family home in all of New York City that's preserved intact from the 19th century.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that cool? Now, D'Arcy's pulling out her knitting, which is a good sign.
Yeah, because I already see a man in the window.
Which window are we now?
Now we're going to go right above the window I mentioned the lady in.
Yeah.
And I am on number 2.
Okay. Okay, I'm moving forward to number 2, which is more of a front view of this building.
And there's a gentleman sitting on what I would say like a bench-like chair. He's got on a brownish colored jacket with the high neck again, dark hair. Looks like he might have facial hair.
Okay.
And he's got on light colored pants. And there's a green object next to him.
Now, how could you possibly see that? I see tree branches in a window.
Yeah, that's just what I'm seeing. And on the opposite side of that, so not the one in the middle, but right across, there's the old style street lamps they used to light with the gas lighter.
You're seeing that?
Yeah.
Because that's not in the picture.
No, I can see it.
Wow. Okay. Well, you're right about the time frame.
There's a P like in Peter. There's an L like in Lauren, Leslie, Lorraine. And there is a G, I think it's a GJ. Oh, there's E, Elizabeth, Lorraine, Elspeth, something like that.
Okay, you're seeing all those letters relating to a number of names.
Yes, and it's right in the middle window.
Okay, well, I have to take your word for that, D'Arcy, because I see none of that. Very cool. And I want to just, before we move forward, I want to just back up a tiny bit and say, why do you say nothing murderous has happened here?
Because it doesn't have that, I want to throw up feel.
Ah, you're kidding.
No, it doesn't make me, I'm certain there has been murder on either side of it, but when I look at it, it doesn't have that throw up, I've been murdered feeling. I could be totally wrong, but I'm not picking it up.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, we're going to see photo number 3 now. Okay. And just as we go, the house did have a twin on its right-hand side. So sadly, the twin of it was torn down, as much of the neighborhood was torn down over the years. So that's why it looks so odd on the right side, and it has an empty lot. So it's not the most attractive spot, but I guess it's nice not to have a neighbor.
That's true.
So let's go into photo number 3, which is going to bring us to its impressive front door.
Photo number 3.
Which is our lovely front door in sort of a vanilla cream color with ionic columns and an archway. It's gorgeous.
All right. It is very pretty, isn't it?
And inside, you're going to see some of the finest plasterwork in the northeastern U.S. You're going to see wonderful hand-carved wood, fancy cornices, medallions on the ceiling, columns, and have a look at this distinctive wrought iron and cast iron railings and these amazing newel posts that look, I don't know, a little bit like lanterns or fancy street lanterns. They're beautiful.
They are. I like the Greek columns on the door. But
yeah,
the door, that's so neat.
Very impressive, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
So as we climb these steps, D'Arcy, what do you think we're going to find inside?
There'll obviously be a few spooks, and sort of makes me feel like a very stately home.
Definitely the family was very affluent. I'll give you a little insight on the family. Their name was Tredwell, and they were headed by a hardware goods purveyor named Seabury Tredwell. So he was a merchant, and eventually the house becomes a museum, and thus it's called the Merchant's House Museum. They were a prominent 19th century New York family. They were very traditional and didn't live a very exciting lifestyle. He dealt in hardware, china, glassware, other goods. As I say, the original belongings and possessions of this family remain in this house. He was married to a gal whose name was Eliza.
All right.
So you mentioned an E, and together they had children. Now, I'm not going to tell you much about the children at all, or about the master or the matriarch of this house, because I'm going to see if you run across them as we explore the building. However, I'm going to give you the opportunity as we go through it to describe who you see, and then we'll talk about whether they actually relate to one of the family members of whom I have all pictures.
Okay.
So we can have a look and see, oh yeah, you're thinking that's that individual, and this is what this person did look like. So let's go into our 4th photo. We're finally into the house. We're into a black and white pic. It's a very narrow shot viewing into this front room, which you were correctly identified as the front parlor room in that main entranceway, the first floor. It's just a black and white, shows us, I think, a piano and a fireplace. I don't know if you can catch anything from that. There's some chairs. It's amazing what you can sometimes see from photographs, so I'm going to let you tell us what you see.
Well, I would say that I can feel like maybe all the kids played the piano, and there must have been more than I thought for children. I thought maybe 4 or 6, but it feels like there's more children passing through this. So unless it was cousins and stuff like that, I would say it was definitely used as an entertainment purpose. I can hear a lot of, earlier when I said when I first looked at the house, I heard music.
Yeah.
So to me, this may be like very traditional religious type music that I'm hearing.
Okay. When you say you think there might be more children than you initially thought, what gives you that impression? What gives you the first impression that there were any children at all? And then what gives you the impression that there might be more?
Well, first of all, I don't think they'd have a house this size unless they had children.
Right.
back then. The whole purpose is to fill the house and to have children working for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know at least 3 girls, possibly 4 boys, that I can see standing around in the living room.
4 boys and you see 3 girls. Okay, let's just keep that in mind.
There probably are more because I can see sort of like a reflection of someone again in the panels.
Okay. I'm going to show you next a series of photographs, mostly black and white pics of this main room, this front parlor room, from a variety of angles. And I'm hoping you're going to meet a few people. So let's look at photograph number 5, which this one is in color, which is cool. Came from about the 1960s. A similar angle to the one we just saw, although a slightly larger image. It's sumptuous. There's beautiful carpeting. The doors are mahogany, I think. Gorgeous looking. What do you see that I don't see?
Well, definitely see the matriarch sitting in the red chair there. There's a gentleman over in the other red chair by the window. There's needlework by the feels of it going on.
Okay.
I feel like there's people on the side of the door I can't see. So they basically raise their children here because I can hear crying babies.
Okay. And when you say you see the matriarch, number 1, how do you know it's a matriarch? And number 2, what does she look like?
Well, she's a little on the plump side. I would have said lighter hair, but that could be gray. Brown sort of type dress, and the type of collar is what makes me feel like it's older, like an older person.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you're presuming that's the matriarch. Okay.
Also, the way she's sitting up, like I'd be in trouble for slouching.
Yes, very prim. Okay, yeah, and then that at that era, I
This
imagine.
would be the Elsbeth, right?
Yes, Eliza, right?
Eliza. I want to call her Elsbeth.
Okay, that might have been a nickname. I don't know. Okay, well, let's look at photo number 6 when we're back to black and white. Same room, but we have a different angle, and we're now focusing on this piano, which we think you've heard playing before we even got into the house.
Okay, just a minute. I'm bringing up number 6. That's funny. That looks like the guy I saw sitting upstairs. So maybe there's a family resemblance or connection to them.
Could well be.
See, and you can see the young lady in the taffetan green dress.
You can actually see a color dress.
Yep. And she's sitting, one's sitting in this chair, the other one is playing the piano.
Oh, far out.
Now, strangely enough, I'm going to call her Elizabeth or Mary. I'm not sure which name I want.
Okay. And do you see the looks of either of them?
They're very striking. Like they have. It's so hard to see. I'm thinking they're like my coloring, like the dirty blonde, maybe a little towards the brown color.
Okay.
Tiny waist.
You can actually see that.
Yeah, they're not like their mother.
The mother's a bit plumper, is she?
Yes, she is.
Okay.
So,
Well, then let's move to our next photo, which is of the same parlor. This one's kind of funky because it has a bit of a mist happening in it. I think it's just poor quality photograph. But, you know, if we were really ghost hunting, we would be saying, oh, there was some kind of entity there on the right-hand side.
yeah.
Photo number 7. Can you describe it for us?
Well, okay. So in the room, obviously black and white, but that mist, if you look at the way it's shaped, that's a lady's dress. And I would say we're getting ready to present tea or something to some guests. And think of having a house party, you know, and you've got people standing around, you're the hostess and you're wandering around. My hands are where you put you join your hands like this.
Okay.
Side. You know, idle hands get you into whatever that expression is.
Yeah.
And this is a lady. You can see the profile of her face. She's very like smooth, not like mine. She probably has my features, or I have her features, whichever way you want to say it.
Right.
And I would say by the looks of it, it's like a brownish, possible black dress with lace on it.
And you're seeing that in the kind of misty area?
Yes.
Okay. And are you seeing anything else in that photograph other than that image in the misty area?
I think there's a man there too.
Okay. As I mentioned to you, D'Arcy, at the beginning, the house has a reputation for being haunted, obviously. Many staff and visitors have reported paranormal occurrences and weird things happening over many decades. And the building became a museum in about 1936. And after that's when, the public was able to come into it. That's when, things started to happen after that. So let's continue snooping around and see if we can get anything that you see that might have been reported by others. Okay, so we'll go into photograph number 8, which again is our front room, the main focus of any household in those times for sure. It focuses on the fireplace. It's again black and white with a really spectacular chandelier.
Yes.
Anybody sitting in the chair warming themselves by the fire, although it looks like the fire grate is covered, so it must be maybe a summer photo.
Well, I'm not going to say I see anyone in the chair or anything, but I do feel like the lights flicker.
Okay.
Like there's the pictures going in and out, like as though not a short, but light flickering.
Okay.
I definitely hear music still.
Okay.
But it's weird because I feel like I want to play, where you take where the guy has the 3 jars and he puts a peanut in one and or ball and he moves.
Hide the ball or.
Okay, I feel like someone's moving things like that, so you have to find them.
Oh, so do you think that's like a poltergeist activity going?
I mean, I can hear voices, so I'm pretty sure people have reported voices.
Absolutely. They reported voices and they have reported the movement of articles without someone either seeing it happen or the movement of articles when the person is not there and they come back and the articles have been shipped.
Yeah.
So that, I think you would consider that to be poltergeist activity, would you?
I would.
Okay. All right. Well, then you're right on there. In photo number 9, we're having our room again, black and white. We're facing the windows, so the street. The same fireplace is on our right. Anything spooky or weird happening in this photograph?
Do they have that's a mirror, right? So
yeah.
There's a reflection of a gentleman in that mirror.
No, I a painting over there on the right hand side.
No, not him. No, this guy's standing up.
Oh, okay.
And 2 dogs.
Oh, really?
So I'm thinking they had dogs.
I see the mirror right in the middle of the room, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the middle of the windows.
Yeah, and I think they had 2 dogs. There must have been a lot of business. Boy, this must have been a dry house at times because I'm not feeling that sense of alcohol and I don't feel okay. Either he traveled a lot more so than the rest of the house because I feel like she's the one who's in control.
Is that Eliza?
Yes.
Well, that would probably make sense since he was a merchant and had his hardware goods, and he must have had to travel to collect his goods and do his business and have a store, that kind of thing. So he would have been like typical male of those days, outside of the house more often than the wife.
Do you know whether or not he had, maybe a little thinning up top, definitely a little heart, what's that thing called that they wear?
A cravat?
Thank you.
Okay, well, have a look, dig around in your photographs. You think you're describing Seabury Tredwell, the matriarch, the patriarch. Have a look in your photographs and try and find photograph A.
Just a minute.
In the last grouping that I sent you 3 last groupings. It's the first of the last grouping, I think. A to whatever. Have a look at photo number A and see if that's the individual you're seeing.
Well, that fairly well looks like him. He's definitely heavier.
Yep, he has got that. Looks like it might be a bow tie, but definitely
it could be. But it's like that high collar, and it does look like he's either really pale or hair, or else he's lost.
Yeah,
front.
Good point. I can't really tell with the very, very poor quality of the photograph. Now we're here. Why don't you just slide over to see the B, photo number B, and that's our gal who's the matriarch.
This is the lady who was looking out the window.
Is it? I wondered about that as you described her at the beginning. So you saw her from the outside?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know
Cool.
if she had, if she was diagnosed with breast cancer?
I have no idea. She lived a good long life, 80 some years.
And maybe it was never diagnosed then.
Maybe. Yeah.
Her daughter lived longer. Her daughter is the oldest living relative in this house.
And why do you say that?
Because when I look at her and you said 80 some years, I'm thinking of someone who was here for 90 years at least.
And why do you say that?
Just this looking at her is what makes me think it.
Okay, good. Okay, well, we won't go down there yet. That's a very insightful comment, though. So I'm going to pull you back to the photos with numbering, and we're going to move from the parlor finally into the fancy dining room, and we're going to find the dining room in photo number 10. So that's another black and white shot. So we are getting a shot of the dining room. We can see it. It's sort of an overview. We're looking over top of the dining room table. Looks pretty fancy. Do you see anybody at that table? Is there anybody having a little snack?
No, but I see a little boy laying on the floor having a tantrum.
Oh, you do you?
Yes. Right in between the doorway, like right between the columns on the left-hand side, just laying on the floor. He's got on those, what I would call knicker pants.
Knickerbockers? Yeah, the short pants.
And I won't call them penny loafers, but they're like a little booty.
Yes, yes.
Boot. And he's just having a fit.
And how old would you say he was?
Oh, he's probably about 4 or 5.
Okay, well,
Not
I have
gonna last long because pretty sure that's the nanny picking him up and taking him away.
Oh, you see her as well.
Yes, just the bonnet, the dark outfit, plain.
So you're not just seeing like a glimpse of something. You often actually, it's like you're seeing a little movie happening. You're seeing the boy have a tantrum. You're seeing her come and pick him up. Is that right?
Yeah, think of the Charlie Chaplin movies, where they're
A little staggered.
Yes.
But you see that.
Yes, I do.
And would you say you see that in all the visions you see of people? Is that staggered look, or do you sometimes just see a solid, not solid, a single image frozen?
Either or.
Oh, okay. So in this house, you've seen both?
Yes.
Cool. Amazing. Okay, well, let's move to photo number 11, which we're now getting back to color, which is lovely, of the dining room. So you can really see how sumptuous it is.
I really want to go see this place in person.
It would be nice, wouldn't it? And there's your mirror. Another one. I guess these are like almost identical rooms, front to back of the house. Do you have any folks now having a little food, or anybody having a tantrum or anything around?
Well, oh yeah, you can see the guy in the mirror.
No, you can't.
Yes, you can. Tall for his time frame. Dark hair, facial hair again, slender. Looks like he's wearing glasses, like those round little. And there's a lady in the mirror.
There's a lady in the mirror as well as.
She doesn't look too happy though.
Okay. She's trapped in a mirror. Would you be happy?
Well, no, I think it's more like might have been a trying day for her. The long mirror is where I see the guy. The short mirror on the wall is where I see the lady. And and interesting enough, it actually looks like a wedding.
What looks like a wedding?
She looks like she's in white.
He looks like she's
color for a wedding, and he's looking like he's in long tails.
Okay, well, I could see in the mirror on the wall, which is a small mirror and a bit of an angle, so we're not flush on. There's a reflection of the lace curtains that are hanging on the windows in that mirror. So is that what you mean by her wearing white?
No, you've got to go up higher.
Oh, bummer. Okay, I thought I had you there.
No, if you go up higher in the little quarter part,
yes, I see
where I can see her because she's at a distance. I can see the lace and the curtain, but it's up higher. Wow,
I can just see kind of a little blob of maybe a reflection. That's it, of the curtain. That's amazing. And in the big curtain, you see the guy in tails?
The big mirror, yes, I see the guy standing there in tails. He would be back probably almost at that pillar entrance.
Wow. Okay, because really I just see a reflection, I think, of some part of the what in the front parlor, a chair or something. That's nice.
Yeah, that
Oh.
table and chair.
Wow. Okay, let's move on to photo number 12. You often see things on staircases, and I'm always fascinated by that. So is anybody climbing up and down the staircase, or perhaps falling down the staircase?
I don't see anyone falling down, but I see a dog running up.
Oh, do you? What kind of dog? Little or big?
Probably a Labrador. Mid-size.
Okay, that would be kind of a typical family dog. And look at that newel post. Isn't
I
that
know, it's gorgeous.
post?
Yeah, that's a pineapple, I believe.
I believe so. Yeah. So we've talked about the pineapple being a symbol of good luck. I think it is.
Yep.
Good fortune. Yeah. It's interesting that it's used a lot. Okay. Well, we're going to troop up the staircase to this next floor, and we're going to see the master bedroom, that of Seabury Tredwell himself, and presumably his wife would have joined him at times. Do you see anything in 13 and 14? They're pretty similar photographs, both black and white of this. Well, one's black and white, sorry, and 14 is a color. Can you tell us if you see anything in those two photographs regarding Seabury or anybody in his family?
Well, I'm beginning to think he was a smoker.
Oh, okay.
I sort of see him sitting in that one chair that's faced towards the bed. And I would have said he was a smoker.
Okay, and what kind of smokers? Cheroots or cigars or cigarettes or pipe?
I think a pipe.
A pipe. Okay.
Like
Are you seeing that sort of getting that sense from 14 or 13 or both of them?
from both of them.
Okay, but you don't see a person in there now. Nobody's happy.
Well, I would say he's sitting in the chair. The impression of him sitting in that chair, especially I wonder if they had a boxer.
You mean a dog? You're seeing dogs, a lot of dogs here.
Well, there was a dog. Now I see a man's face. I would say that he enjoyed his smoke, a little nip of something at night, and the quiet and solitude of his bedroom.
Oh, okay. And would you say he's the same guy we saw previously in photo A?
Yes.
Okay, so that is Seabury, we believe. Okay. Well, let's look at photo number 15, which is a slightly different angle. It's black and white again. We see the master's bedroom's really nice fireplace and a large wooden wardrobe, it looks like, to the left, and a nice chair by the fire. Is anybody cozying up there?
Yeah, I'm okay with this one.
Are you okay? All right, great. Now we're going to move to the back of the house to the mistress's bedroom. Quite similar bed design, the very sumptuous four-poster with the awning all over it, and it's that scarlet color, because we do have an image of Seabury's bedroom in color. Anything about Eliza in here? It looks kind of plain to me.
It does. It looks very Puritan.
There you go. Exactly.
Probably did a lot of prayers in this room by the feels of it. I feel that essence of calling upon God here.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Curious whether or not she had her children in this room, because I feel people moving around, like say midwives use that kind of terminology here.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have said she had her children here.
So she actually gave birth to children in that bed.
I would have thought so.
Well, that wouldn't have been surprising, I guess, in those days, right? They certainly wouldn't be going to a hospital in the late 1800s or mid 1800s.
Do you know if she had more than 7 children?
She had 8 children. 8 children who lived, D'Arcy.
Okay, because I actually think there's more children here, because I can see little kids around the bed, and to me those would be children that passed.
Ah, okay. Because my understanding from the research is that there were other children that didn't survive into adulthood or past youth, which wasn't uncommon. So you're seeing smaller children actually playing around the bed.
Yes, standing around the bed. So my guess is she might have died in that bed.
Eliza?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really tell you that. It's a good possibility. Okay. Let's look at number 17, which is a view from, as if you were Eliza, lying in bed and looking out of your four-poster bed towards your little vanity or makeup table, I guess, but a vanity is a better term for it. Anybody sitting there looking into that mirror, or do you get any glimpses of anything going on in that photograph?
I don't, but I feel very peaceful. Like it's like my own little piece of heaven, basically.
Okay.
You know, you're only allowed in. Now, strangely enough, I would say she never had sex in this bed.
So you think she had to go to the master's bedroom?
Yes.
Oh, well, okay, we won't necessarily pry into that. Okay. But it's interesting you say that both bedrooms have a sense of peace, because you said Seabird enjoys having a smoke and a little tittle, and she's having a peaceful time in her bedroom.
Yeah, and you know what? They actually have now done a study showing that having your own bedroom is actually really beneficial for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for couples it is. You need space, you need your own independence, I think, and you do need, as you say, the peace. Sometimes you need the peace. Yeah, I guess we don't all have large enough accommodation for that.
No.
Okay, well, we've almost finished our snoop around the house, D'Arcy, but we have the top and the bottom of the house to go. So we're going to, now that we're already up one flight, we're going to go to the next flight, which is in photograph 18. We have where the servants' quarters would be. Now, the Tredwells, being a wealthy family, would have had servants. Usually they were about numbering 4 women, often Irish immigrants. Okay, they lived here. They lived in this little room was their abode. They stayed on average about a decade per person. Their roles could have been, they generally had a cook and a cook's helper, a parlor maid, and a second girl. You mentioned a nanny, and I don't know if there was a nanny that lived in. I'm not sure if there would have been a nanny here. What do you see? These very Spartan, plain beds in a very small attic room.
Well, I would have said it was a ladies' room, because there's a lady with off like a light colored, grayish colored dress on.
Okay.
But by the time the oldest daughter died, would she still have had servants? And that's weird. Okay, so I see a lady standing there, grayish type dress on, high collar again. And so to me, this is a ladies' room.
Okay, well, that would make sense. I think all their servants probably were female in this house. They didn't get paid very much, but they got paid something, and they were safe in this location. There weren't many opportunities, as you can imagine, for female immigrants to find employment that was safe. And so presumably if you stayed about a decade, it was a decent enough place to live and a decent enough wage, I guess, for the times. But you really see how small and Spartan the place is. My goodness. Yes. So now we're going to just go all the way down to the house. You mentioned when we first saw the house, whether there was a basement. Yes, there was a basement, and the basement was the kitchen. Of course, really the heart of any house. I've only got one photograph of the kitchen, of the basement, and it is of the most important, I think, location in the kitchen, the sink. It's very old-fashioned looking. Can you get any sense of what might have gone on in the kitchen down here?
Noise, pots and pans banging. I just saw the bells. So there's the bells to call you.
Right.
And pump for the water.
Yes.
And look at the size of that candle.
Yeah, that's pretty tall, isn't it? It must be at least a foot high.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they wouldn't have had light for a heck of a long time in the building. So
I would tell you this is where the heart of the family is.
Yeah, I would think that any place where there's food is going to be that. So let's talk about the family then. You originally said right off the top, which I'm going to tell you you're correct. There were never any murders in this house, never any overt violence from that perspective. And so the fact that you were able to pick that up right away and didn't feel that vomiting sensation was pretty neat. I thought that was very cool. You mentioned seeing a woman in the window, and you described her a bit, and you think it's Eliza, and we'll go have another look at Eliza's picture in a moment. You also mentioned several initials. Have you got any other initials? You mentioned P is maybe Peter, but P. L, maybe Laura, but an L. G and an E as an Elizabeth. And you certainly had Eliza.
And
you also
Mary.
an Elizabeth, and you mentioned a Mary or Mary Elizabeth or Elizabeth Mary, but or two different people. So
Yeah.
tell us more what you know about the family. Plus, you also mentioned you thought there were more than 7 children that survived, and they were, and that one of them, the youngest daughter, would you say, or the youngest child, lived the longest? Is that what you're saying?
I believe so.
Okay, so tell me what you think about this family.
Well,
I give
I think they were close knit. I think maybe some of the children took after their father. One of them may have been named after Dad by the sounds of things, or Grandpa. And I feel that even though prosperity seemed to be there, I think at times they may have struggled, but because they were so close knit, they were able to get through things.
Do you see marriages for many of them?
I would think at least 4 of them got married by the feels of it.
Okay.
The youngest daughter should have been married, but I'm not 100% sure.
The eldest daughter?
The youngest.
The youngest. Okay. Should have been married. Why do you say that?
Well, I sort of felt like she was ready to get married. I just don't know if it actually happened, whether or not he died or whether he went off to war.
Okay. So you're thinking the youngest daughter was preparing to marry in some way and ended up not marrying, but you feel that the eldest daughter married.
Yes.
Okay. Do you feel any of the other? Well, let's introduce you to the children, and we'll walk our way through it, because you're very close on a number of key things, which is really remarkable. So if you go to then the photos that start with letters, or the ones that I've identified as letters, we have Seabury, the fellow himself, the main man. And you'll notice he died you won't notice it's on your photograph, but on mine. He died in 1865. So he was in the house for about 30 years before he died. His time frame of dying is very quite fascinating, because he died right when the Civil War was ending and the Industrial Revolution was starting. So he was on the verge of really 2 turbulent periods in history in North America, and pretty remarkable time frame. His wife Eliza, as I mentioned, lived a long time. She died in 1882, born just before the turn of the century, so a little over 80. So she did very well
for that time frame. Yeah,
I guess that's a mourning dress, as in she is in mourning for her husband.
Yeah.
She does look plumpish, even though the dress is massive. I get a sense that she looks a little plumpish.
She definitely looks a little plumpish to me.
And she is the woman in the window
at the very beginning,
which is so cool that she would be looking out the window, perhaps to see her children come home.
Yeah.
Who knows? Or her husband. Okay, well then let's go to photograph number C. And you're going to see the eldest, who's a daughter named Elizabeth. She lived a good long time as well. Do you recognize her as anyone that you've seen in the house?
She probably was down at the piano.
Okay, you're thinking the one with the one might have been called Mary?
Yeah.
Okay, was she playing the piano or was she sitting in the chair?
She was playing the piano.
Okay. Now, you mentioned you thought she might have been married.
Yes.
And why do you say that?
Just a feeling.
What's a feeling of person being married? What is that?
Like that contentment that some people have when they're married.
Oh, okay.
Wouldn't know that one, but anyways, there are apparently people who love being married.
That's good to know, eh?
Yeah.
You were correct, was married, and her husband has a very interesting name, Effingham Nichols, and he is in your next photo D.
Is he a barrister?
Well, doesn't he look it? I don't know, but he just looks like he's a barrister. He's got that judge's robe thing going, wearing over top of a suit. I don't know what he was. Did you see him in the house anywhere?
He was the man who, mind you, he's not as, maybe it was the distance, but he's not as thin as I thought he was. So maybe this is after he was married, not.
So you thought he was the man in the mirror?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
But there's another man who's got the facial hair.
Okay, well, I think we were just about to meet him. He is the eldest son His name is Horace. He has the facial hair going.
Yeah.
Is he someone you might have spotted?
I think he was in one of them. Yes. But there's someone who has, well, maybe it's not him because I'm expecting a mustache and a little bit more hair.
Okay, well, let's keep on going. Our next child is another daughter, and her name is what? Mary.
Oh, is it?
It is.
Look at that. I'm surprised.
And was she sitting with her sister playing the piano?
Yes, and she does a lot of needlework.
Okay. The next photo is the second son. His name is Samuel. Looks very much like his brother. Look, got the same robes as Effingham,
Yes.
the brother-in-law, has. So he looks like a judge of some sort, or as you say, a barrister.
Yeah, and you know what he reminds me of is Abraham Lincoln.
Doesn't he just? Okay, we're moving to another daughter named Phoebe. She looks a little bit different than the other girls from my perspective. A little older photograph. She's got that Puritan collar on.
Yes.
Would you say you encountered her at all?
She's the one who had the light-colored hair in the one place in the parlor, I think it was.
Okay.
And because that collar is what stands out. She doesn't look as happy as I would.
No, she does not. And this definitely is a picture of her at an older age than the other women.
Yeah.
So, maybe life has been a bit harder for her. I don't know. She lived to about 70 years of age, died in 1907. Now, you mentioned you thought some of the people in the family might have died in the home.
Yeah.
Have any sense of who might have died in the home? We looked at a bunch of these
But
individuals.
we haven't seen her yet.
Fine, we're going to move on to the next daughter, the second last child and daughter. This one is named Julia. She's in photo I.
Oh, the J.
Yeah.
Okay. So is she my girl who died at home, who was the oldest?
No, but she did die at home.
Okay.
And in fact, Phoebe, whom we just saw in the previous photograph, she also died at home. So Julia died 2 years after Phoebe. So Phoebe died in 1907. Julia died in 1909. And we have one last child, the child who was amazingly born in the house. And as you said, died in the house. And she made it to a ripe old age of, as you imagined, 93. And there we have is Gertrude in photo J. That's a really nice photo, the best photo of all. I think it's a better close-up, clearer photo. Of course, she's born a bit later than the others, so the photography would have been better by that time. So what do you think of Gertrude? Is she the one?
Oh, she's very pretty.
Isn't she? And I think the others must have been as well. They just didn't have such great photography.
Yeah. This one would have been up to mischief.
You think?
Yeah.
Do you get a sense of Gertrude?
Was she was married too, right?
Well, this is the bit of the trick. Look at photo number K.
Okay.
This is the fellow I think you've been thinking about.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, very good looking man. Looks like Edgar Allan Poe, if you ask me.
Yeah.
His name is Louis Walton. He was betrothed, sort of, to Gertrude. She, in fact, well, whether they were betrothed or not, they were in love and they wanted to marry. But very sad story, not surprising perhaps in those days. He was a doctor, a very young doctor, new into his practice, wanted to marry her. This was an affluent family. Doctors were not considered to be upper class individuals.
Yeah.
So sadly, Gertrude was not allowed to marry Louis, who went off and married someone else and died like 70 years later. I guess he had a decent life. But our Gertrude stayed a spinster and remained in the house there her entire life.
Wow.
So I'm going to show you a photograph, the last photograph we have, and this is of Gertrude at a much older age. Photograph L. Gertrude Tredwell. She's in a wheelchair, still looking pretty chipper.
Yeah, she still looks great for her age.
Doesn't she? And
Yeah.
she's an amazing woman. She was left alone in the house in 1909 when her last sibling died, Julia. So she lived from 1909 to 1933 by herself in that house. She is definitely the most frequently seen, well,
Yeah.
she's believed to be, and I want to ask you, between Gertrude in this chair looking elderly And our gal at the very beginning, Eliza, our photo number B, who is seen the most in the Merchant house?
Well, you've already said it. It's her.
You think it's Gertrude,
Yeah.
but she wasn't the one you saw at the window.
No, she wasn't one I saw at the window, but I would say it's her. It's the shape of the face.
Ah, okay. She has a very distinctive nose.
Yes.
Go back to that photo number J. She has quite a distinctive nose, which you can see very clearly in the picture of her as an older person. Okay, well, that's the family. Elizabeth was married. Mary got married, and Samuel, one of the sons, married. Our gal Gertrude was born, well, pretty well born, but she died in the same bed that she lived in her entire life, which is amazing.
Yeah.
She is the reason we have this house today, and the reason we have the detailed collection, the voluminous collection of family items, because she really fought in her later years to keep the house, to maintain the house. She was running out of money, quite desperate, I believe, but she scrabbled and hung on and wouldn't sell anything and kept it all preserved and intact. And so when she died and people went into the house, they were astonished by what was in the house. It was as if the family had never left.
Yeah.
And a cousin purchased the house when it was going up for sale, and they were fearful that it would be torn down like many of the houses were in that neighborhood. We're talking about the 1930s. Things were changing in New York City, obviously. But he bought the house, and he fairly quickly decided it would be a museum and funded it himself until he died a few years later. And then it became an official New York museum. It's been funded, by volunteers and by charity since then. And it's very popular, and it's now known for, of course, its collection of Victorian family items and the way everything is laid out as if the family was still there. But it's now become more and more known for being haunted.
Yeah, I could see that.
So you saw Gertrude, you saw Eliza, and you saw some of the gals, Mary and Elizabeth, and you might even have seen the boyfriend, Louis, which would be really interesting because you mentioned a fellow with hair and a mustache and more hair, and one of the sons, or maybe Horace. So others have seen Gertrude, Seabury himself, whom you saw.
Yeah.
Of course, they don't know exactly who they're seeing, but this is what they think. There have been lots of strange sensations, right? Okay, temperature drops, feeling of being watched. Now, what do you think about this temperature dropping business?
Oh, that is so true.
Is it?
Oh, yes.
I was thinking it was a crock.
No, you walk into a room and all of a sudden you can see your breath in the air.
And that is an indication of not just that it's cold, but what of?
Spirit.
Spirit.
Yeah.
Is spirit always cold?
No, sometimes they're warm, but most of the time when a spirit is showing up, there's that, like you see on Sixth Sense, where you see the breath, and that really does happen.
Wow. Okay, well then I'll believe that. Also, as you had mentioned, there have been voices, music, whispers, conversations, even footsteps. Did you hear any footsteps? Do you hear footsteps?
Well, I just took it for granted. If I could see people, there'd be footsteps.
Well, yeah, but you're seeing people, you see. The rest of the folks are just hearing this stuff. Okay. Yeah, you're ahead of them all. All righty. As you mentioned, you thought some objects might be moved around. That's definitely something that's been not necessarily witnessed, but found out afterwards. And doors have been known to open and close, and furniture shifts and items fall from shelves, but I don't necessarily know that they're being witnessed when that happens.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is the xylophone. The phone thing where you wind it up and you put the thing down, and I can hear that.
Oh, can you? Well, that would probably make a good deal of sense. I think they were, as you mentioned, there's music as soon as you saw the house. They were a musical family. There was a lovely piano there. They would have probably had one of those as time went by and they came into being. But as the family started to fade, and I think as Seabury died, they started to, become less wealthy. And then eventually, as I say, poor Gertrude was pretty well a recluse and very impoverished in her later years. Now, when COVID hit and the museum shut down, as did most of the world, The staff who'd been hearing all these spooky stories and themselves all having had encounters with at least one something, a spooky encounter, they decided to do some serious research. And they had a team set up with a neuroscientist, a specialist in death, a TV personality from a show called Paranormal Caught on Camera, and museum staff. Now, they did a lot of research, a lot of investigation. It's hard to find out exactly what their findings were, but they did have lectures in New York City, so they would have perhaps revealed a bit more than I can find. But my understanding is they got some EVPs, or electric voice phenomenons. Okay, so they recorded some audio.
Yeah.
They heard bells in answer to some questions, and they said somebody joined in one of their conversations and they used salty language, which doesn't suit this family, I have to say. But I wanted to ask you about this EVP business, electronic voice phenomenon. What do you think about wandering around in a haunted house with a little tape recorder and seeing if you can record noises? What's that about to you?
Well, I have seen it happen.
Really?
Yep, and I've seen voices come out. There used to be over in Langford a group that would do it once a month. And I went, and sure enough, some voices came out and you could hear the static. There was more static, I think, than voices. So if you can get a voice, it's amazing.
Yes. Well, I wanted to we can go into this in a minute as part of our listeners' question, because I wanted to ask you more about these ghost hunting tools that people use in relationship to how you do or how you can receive and perceive stuff. So I'll just say then that's pretty well the end of our trip through the Tredwell house and the Merchants Museum. I think, did really well this time, as usual, knowing right away that there wasn't a murder. I thought that was the most outstanding thing right off the top.
Actually, quite pleasant.
Good. I should try and do that more often. I'm sorry I don't. And the fact that you fairly quickly knew that somebody had lived a long life in the house, that it was one of the children you thought was the youngest child, and that they had died there. That's really cool. I mean, I know obviously you look at a house and you know it's 100, 200 years old. People have died in the house in those centuries, but I could say that. But I don't have a sense of a person, who's died. So I thought that was really good. And came up, like, now I know Elizabeth's an incredibly common name for those time frames, but you nailed it with the mother being Elizabeth, and another child with a similar name. And then there was a Mary. The G and the P we didn't run across. So, well, no, it's not true. We had a P for Phoebe. That's right.
And Gertrude.
Gertrude is the G. It just hit me as I was saying it, so I should slap myself. So the L, I guess, was the only one that perhaps didn't hit home. That's pretty darn good. Okay, so thanks very much on our discussion about the Tredwell Merchants Museum house. I think this is I really enjoyed it. It was a different approach. I was a bit concerned because I didn't want to show you the images of the family first, because then you would say, well, I see a person with, pulled back hair and a high collar, and that would be cheating. So the idea of having to hold them back and then introducing them when you've given us some clues as to what you think the person looked like, that seemed to work.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, did you enjoy your visit?
Absolutely. I'd like to go and see it in person.
We hope you've enjoyed listening to Seeing Dead People. Whatever's going on in D'Arcy's head, I think is so cool and astonishing. We'd love to hear from you with questions for D'Arcy about her psychic process, or suggestions for other mystifying situations you would like us to investigate. So please, shoot us an email to info@radiosidney.ca with Seeing Dead People in the subject line. New episodes of Seeing Dead People will emerge on the first Saturday of every month. Seeing Dead People airs online at RadioSidney.ca every Saturday night at 8 p.m. and Sunday morning at 10 a.m., both Pacific Standard Time. Thanks so much for listening to Seeing Dead People. I really dig researching, writing, and communicating with D'Arcy and her otherworldly contacts. So until the next time, remember, Seeing Dead People is a blast with Goosebumps Guaranteed.
This has been a program of Radio Sydney.